Thank you.
And we're back for another Gab with Abigail. If you are not back and this is your first time on my channel, welcome to Gabs with Abigail, where we talk about the Bates and the Duggars and other D-list fundies. Today we are keeping up with the D-list fundies, kind of, and as you can see from the title, we're talking about Mrs. Midwest. I'm going to respond to a couple of the comments I got on my last video about Mrs. Midwest, and it's in honor of talking about pretty privilege. I thought I would do a get ready with me. I don't do makeup while I do these videos, but I'm going to for just this one, just because I felt it was appropriate. I don't really know how to do my makeup, so it'll just be a good time that we're going to have together on this little journey, pretty much. So let's get it started. So I hate to disappoint people who are Mrs. Midwest stans. I know you guys came out here to defend your porcelain queen, but while we are going to be talking about her pretty privilege, this isn't an insult to her in that sense that I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to put in an effort into like your appearance. Like if that's something that you like to do, go ahead, more power to you. Like I definitely am a firm believer of when you look good, you feel good. I almost always wear makeup when I make these videos as a part of her feminine brand. Keeping up your appearance. So I really don't think that there is anything wrong with that. What I do think is wrong is that while she knows the advantages of being pretty and like the doors that can open for you, for people, how people will receive you when you're very like pretty and attractive and X, Y, and Z. I mean, because she has several videos on her channel, I think it's funny and ironic that people who support her can't see that that's a part of her element, and for that reason that you don't know how to be critical of her anymore. She's pretty and she's nice, and because she has a really great smile on her face, then how dare any of us say anything bad or negative about her? How dare say, oh my God, I think I'm out of this. Oh my God, this is really a sad day. This is my favorite foundation. But yeah, and again, it all comes back to this idea that beautiful people really can't do any wrong. And it reminded me, since talking about racism, I realized it's the thing that we really and truly get wrong as a country and as a society about racism and how we teach it really wrong. We've turned it into this idea, and it's just very American in general, like to not have group accountability, but that is the individual, right? That because Caitlyn is a nice person, she's sweet. It's actually really hard to do, to like do your makeup and be talking. So this idea that we give that racism is individual actions, right? It requires you as an individual being a mean and nasty person who uses the N-word, who thinks that all black people are criminals and X, Y, and Z stereotype, or, you know, you don't want to talk to black people, you don't want to associate with them, you know, you have negative things to say, X, Y, and Z. And if you as an individual do those things, that makes you a racist, right? It can never be that. For a lot of other reasons, as a society as a whole, we do things that are a little racy, right? That it's just interesting to me, like that's where we have progressed, is that racism is an individual kind of negative character trait. You, like, if you're somebody who would go and, I don't even know, if you say hi to your black neighbors every day, then you can't be racist, right? If your child has kids who has classmates who are, I think I did this wrong. I didn't. Who has classmates who are black, then you can't be racist, right? Like that's enough. If you say hi to them, if you don't feel uncomfortable with that, you know, your kids listen to black music and black artists, then no way can you be racist. You know, I just realized that I want to do my eye makeup first. This is actually really difficult. But yeah, so that is the narrative that we have, and that's what we're getting really wrong about racism. And that's why we continue to have the problems in this country that we have today. That's why a lot of people can't understand the police and racial violence, right? You know, because That's one bad egg, right? That's one bad cop. And the same thing goes for racism now at this point, that it's you as an individual. It can't be it's not your family and how they're raised, the kind of jokes that they make, the kind of political policies that they believe in and that they've been raised in. That kind of stuff might be coloring your worldview and what you think about Black people, because you as an individual now know that racism is bad, that you shouldn't be a racist person. So how can anybody go and tell you that you're racist? Yeah, that's the world we live in. So again, circling back around to Mrs. Midwest, and again, this isn't necessarily to be about her, right? But it's this idea that because she's beautiful, because she's nice, we can't criticize her about something we don't even, how do you even know that, right? It's an example though of pretty privilege, right? If you're beautiful and you're nice and you're warm and you're inviting, like she, makes videos to teach you how to be, then you can get away with murder. You can get away with more stuff, right? People are more willing to forgive you. People are more willing to say, well, everybody has some kind of privilege that they benefit from, and it's okay to admit it, right? Like everybody does. It doesn't mean that you're some terrible, horrible person by admitting that, oh, hey, I have a benefit that nobody else has. Like, it can be even little things like going to college for the first time. If you have a network of people who can support you through that process, that is a privilege that you have. Are you a terrible person? So again, talking about that just to talk about what we're getting wrong about this discussion about racism in terms of it being like some kind of individual act when it's the society at large is giving it to you. And if you make a choice to not acknowledge it, or else that you don't realize how you might be able to make the world a more equitable place for that. Like, for example, like when we talk about white privilege, people get so upset about it and have to bring up like, oh, my privilege didn't stop me from being like, poverty always comes up, which is such a weird thing to bring up, it's weird because it's like, yes, poverty is bad. And I think we can all agree that poverty is bad, and that's great that you triumphed in spite of that. And nobody ever tells those people, right, that they're in a victim mentality when they bring up their poverty. Like, as a white person, why wouldn't you complain that the poverty at the level that you experienced exists and that we should be doing something actively to make it better as a society? But instead, we say that person, the reason that they're talking about it must be because they're successful, right? They're talking about how they triumphed in spite of. And Black people never get that welcome window, that if you're complaining about racism, if you're complaining about colorism, if you're complaining as a Black person about poverty, it's never because that you endured and were successful in spite of all that. It's no. You're in a victim mentality, and that's why you can't get anywhere, and that's why the race isn't progressing the way it should have. You have a victim mentality. Like, no, I'm actually complaining about how this is inconveniencing me, and I'm just so sick of that narrative. I promise you it's tired. I promise you that it is. I'm trying out new setting powders, so we'll see how this goes. I feel like looking at these now, it's probably going to make me white as a ghost. I think one of the most interesting comments that I got was kind of about like, oh, Caitlin's not like that. She lets you, if you're a career person, she doesn't judge you. Communications degree, right? She's smart. And instead of, we wish more Christians were like this. Instead of telling you that you're a bad person, yada, etc., for wanting a career or for thinking that that's your calling, she just makes her life look very attractive. What she does is she's very good. It doesn't feel like she's forcing her lifestyle down your throat, right? It's almost like the opposite of Girl Defined, right? She's purposefully teaching how to be feminine and tap into those things. So it's like you're searching for those things. Hers is an invitation, where theirs is a you have to, even though they both believe the same things in terms of biblical womanhood. She has packaged and sold it better to adults, to women. I do not do makeup, so this is just me doing whatever. Promise. Normally I wouldn't do anything on my like in terms of a color. I'd just be like, eyeliner, we're done, bitches. I'm gonna read a couple comments. I love Mrs. Midwest. I don't think everything should be defined by skin color. I also don't think that everything should be defined by skin color. I'll preface this by saying I found Mrs. Midwest through another creator who I feel like gives bad takes on people, the Duggars and the Bates specifically. And so watching her commentary prompted me to want to go watch it myself. And while I didn't agree with everything in those videos, it was one of her vlogs, like videos talking about like how to be feminine, how to be a woman, how to whatever. I think if that's something that people are interested in and want to have lessons about and want to practice biblical womanhood, like, more power to you. That's not my business to stop you. Do I think it's wrong to be forcing the narrative that this is something that all women should have and should be before someone tries to say that she doesn't? In her very first video, I will put in the quote, right? This is how she feels. So don't tell me that this isn't what she believes and what she thinks, that she doesn't think that all women should be practicing femininity. She does. Moving on, right? I don't have to agree with that. I don't have to complain about her viewing that way. I'm not saying that I don't believe in femininity, but I don't think that that's for every woman. And that's maybe a deeper conversation for another day. But I enjoyed her vlog content. I do hope to someday be a stay-at-home wife. Maybe not forever. I do kind of like the idea of making my own money. You know what I mean? But I do want to like stay home with my kids when they're young, pick them up, be able to pick them up from school and bring them to all their activities and be super involved, be knowledgeable, not feel too tired. Like, I want to be able to cook for my husband. Like, women who do all that and work, like, y'all are doing a lot. Being a stay-at-home mother, and again, this is why it's just like interesting to me to get comments about me, people thinking I'm like super career driven. I think staying at home and running your house, running your children, all of that is a lot of work. It's labor. So I liked her vlogs. Like I said, I do kind of aspire to a stay-at-home lifestyle. So as for that reason, like, I definitely don't like go to look for white creators being racist. Like, that's weird. You know what I mean? To genuinely like somebody's content and enjoy their channel, and then like who's white, and that's not even necessarily something that you think about in that, you know, huge context, like where maybe, yes, like obviously if you're living a more traditional lifestyle, you're practicing biblical womanhood, most likely you're conservative leaning. That doesn't take away from that I can enjoy your content and like not have to really necessarily worry about or think about this race issue thing as it exists. I could just kind of watch and enjoy, which is the purpose of the videos that she makes, right? So for me as a black person, a black woman watching her content, and like I said in my last video, there are a lot of black women who watch her channel just and have the same feelings as me, to learn all the things that I learned in the CC Marie video. It came out after, but the hippie Catholic video, the things that I've learned on Reddit about Mrs. Midwest, how heartbreaking and disappointing it is to like again see color and racism be injected into your life without wanting it to be. Like, damn, I can't enjoy shit. So when you get comments like this, when it's just like, how nice for you that you're so free from this thing called color, that you don't have to have experiences where your favorite creators or people that you like who are a different race, and you get a relief from that, right? You don't have to be thinking about it in the grander scheme of like everything that's going on in our world. Look at the last 2 years with all the police brutality, marches. God, I get to enjoy a cop's wife's content. And even still, right? It's almost like I said later, I should have known better. Yeah, so I just reading this, like I know. She also said nothing bad about anyone, and she includes all women in her talks. Again, this idea that if you don't use the N-word, you can't be racist. Like I said other times, and I'll say it now, everybody has a bias, right? You can't live in America and not, because that's how crazy our race issue is. Like, you're a liar if you're going to try and tell me because you want to feel good as an individual that you've never made an irresponsible comment about race. Probably have you not probably laughed at an Asian joke about Asian people being smart, or believed that stereotype at one point. As children, have we all not used to do the little eye thing, right? And knowing now as older, like looking back, okay, that's super inappropriate. Why did we do that, right? If you played Cowboys and Indians, all of that, you know? And does that make you this super horrible person now? Does that make you some kind of racist now? If you've learned from that and can acknowledge that those things happened and they weren't appropriate, right? But there are still plenty of things that we're unlearning. And that's even also what bothers me about, like, about racism. Like, that we've made it this huge, very uncomfortable topic when it should be uncomfortable. But not to the point where you don't want to ever talk about it. Like, for me, I feel like that I'm still unlearning things about homophobia. I grew up in a strict, like, in a conservative kind of black culture in my own sense, like of church, where being gay is bad, right? Like, it's against the Bible, right? So even where I was at a point in my life where I thought that I'm not homophobic, if you're gay, you know, whatever, live your little gay life, like, I'm not gay, that's not me, like, but you, if you want to be gay, hey, go be gay, like, that's just, it's not my business. But when you're actually confronted with certain things, certain thoughts, certain comments that you make, and have to realize, like, oh no, you are still kind of unlearning your homophobia, because it's just kind of built into your society that we see everything through a heteronormative lens. So I feel like even me, I'm still actively unlearning homophobia. I still have transphobia. I know I am still actively unlearning that. And I don't think that there's anything, like, I'm not scared to admit that. That's the thing that's weird about when it comes to racism, because we want this effort to not seem like we're any of those things, when it's like, if you could just admit that that happens to you, that, and that's again where I say we're learning racism wrong. And if you can't have conversations about it, if you can't get uncomfortable, if you can't take criticism about some beautiful white woman because she's nice to you, then where are we going in this life, right? Is she a horrible, terrible, bad person? Did I go into that video and say, she's a shit person, she's terrible, she's garbage, we should throw her in the trash can, she's canceled? Don't get me started on how much I hate the idea of cancel culture. And all of a sudden, like, it's the end of the world. Like, you have to come in and defend her. Why? When it was a teachable moment. I want to point out that when it was brought to her attention that people noticed she wasn't following any black creators and that she was following those European races are dying out posting pages, that not only did she quietly unfollow them, she started following more black content creators and using her platform to shout them out, mention them, meaning she's aware and is willing to learn and to change. So why aren't you, as her fans, willing to acknowledge that she's not a perfect person who makes mistakes and that there's still room to grow? For me, there were comments that, well, it hurt my feelings just because nobody likes critique. It was an honest critique that I needed, which was that my tone was too patronizing. And watching the video back after getting those comments, you're absolutely right. And I regret that in the video. I can't undo it now at this point, but it was a learning point for me. So look at that. You just learned something from a critique. We need to get away from being offended by everyone and everything and allow people to just live their lives. Stop labeling everything as racist. We need to get away from being offended by everyone and everything. So why were you so offended by this for her? That's what I mean. That you're offended by racism just being suggested, like a race bias. It's stereotypes that you don't understand. It's things that are implicit and embedded into our society that reproduce racism without it having to look explicitly like racism, so that this person can feel comfortable and compelled to come into my comments and tell me, stop labeling everything as racism. Are you exhausted from all the times when something is brought up and racism gets brought into it? Oh my God, I'm so sorry you're tired about hearing about it. If anything, what I will say is that there are so many of her views that she hides, right? Again, by making this inclusive space to just bring you into, to put your toe just a little bit in so you'll start to unfold it for yourself. And I feel like your affiliation with Candace Owens is one of them because, again, of how many black women really do like you. Black people don't like Candace Owens. The overwhelming majority don't like her. They don't. And it's not because she's a conservative, like I said. It's because that she has to talk down on black people And that's kind of annoying, right? It's just kind of, it's a little bit shitty. And that's people's problem. Like, it has nothing to do with her being a conservative necessarily. And the reason why it has nothing to do with her being a conservative is that she's not saying anything abnormal that anything else that conservatives don't say. Like, it's really not interesting. It's really not that unique. This video is entertaining as a Black Christian woman happily practicing femininity. So in my video, did I not say that plenty of women, there are other Black women who are on YouTube who teach about femininity? I'm glad for you that you feel like you don't get stereotyped. I'm glad that you think majority don't. So patronizing. Again, I put that already, but like one of the comments about you being patronizing, I think you're right. I agree with you. Don't think you're wrong. I hate how some liberal Black people act like they are the spokesperson for us all. Some Black liberal people act like they're the spokesperson for us all. Maybe not for us all, but like, I think you didn't watch my full video because I made it pretty clear that I don't consider myself a liberal, and I'm really insulted that you called me that. Rude. My feelings are hurt. Everybody can cry and get up into arms about Mrs. Midwest, me suggesting Mrs. Midwest is a racist, but nobody cares that I was called a liberal. Hurt. Sad. When you said Black women can't get the benefits from Mrs. Midwest tips on femininity, didn't say that at all. Actually, what I said is that, of course, you can take her tips and use them and employ them. I chuckled because that is not my experience at all. I'm so glad that you as one singular person feel that way. Good job. It invalidates all of the experiences and research of everybody else. So I'm so thankful that you put this in because that's what matters, is your one individual experience. But I do enjoy watching liberal women get bent out of shape over her lifestyle, and she just stays pretty and unbothered. LOL. And I think it's funny for you to try and say that, like, oh, Black people aren't a monolith, right? It's kind of like the vibes of this. And then you called me because I don't seem conservative to you. A liberal. Okay. While she stays pretty and unbothered. Again, like that element of pretty privilege of just like, you know what I mean? Bent out of shape. I was out of shape about the book. I didn't even talk about her lifestyle. I didn't say anything about her being like, herself being feminine. But does all the ideals of her femininity white femininity? Yes. If that's something that you can't understand, then that's weird. Like, who do you think in our society set the standards of what's feminine? How are you being feminine when you were out in the fields? How are you being feminine when you didn't have control of ads? How are you being feminine when you weren't necessarily setting the fashion trends yet? Right? So when we're thinking about the Edwardian era, when we're thinking about, you aren't thinking about, like, when we're talking about the Victorian era, when we're talking about, you know, those hyper feminine eras, when we're talking about the 1950s, you're trying to look me dead in the eye, AC, and tell me that that's not white femininity. Okay. All right. You got it, sis. Hey. Okay. Plenty of, right? Is it the overwhelming majority, though? Is that what you feel? Because I was talking about a majority vote. Like, I don't know why you being Black and not being leftist makes you the authority on what those Black people do and do not like. Could say the same thing back. The tone of this video was quite patronizing. You're right, sis. I used to be the kind of person who hated to be wrong. And that's why I said I'll take the criticism. Even at the beginning, which said I struggled to see the point of this video. I get it. I feel like there are ways I could have been more concise and clear. So I definitely take that criticism too. This was my first time doing a video like that, so I enjoyed the learning lesson. I don't disagree with you there, but like the fact that you were so quick to defend this woman because people are so vitriolic and so afraid of racism and they just so badly want it to not be a thing. This is pretty. I wish my eye makeup was as cute. Just so I don't do makeup. Let's do a little eyeliner. I was like, there's something missing. I actually don't know where my eyeliner is. I didn't think it was an unfair criticism of her, and I guess maybe that's why. And because to me, I guess why I feel like other people think it's unfair is because of how much of a dirty word we've made racism. Like, we still have people who think we're in a post-racial society, who just want to ignore and feel like it's enough that we've all know racism is bad to just say that that means we're not practicing it. Actually, I kind of like this look, because I guess it's too far away. From close up, it's a hot mess, I promise. I'm not allowed to be critical. I'm not allowed to say X, Y, and Z happen. And I don't think that's okay. Ooh, I put a little too much of this. Can you see? Looking at it like in person versus on the camera is like two different things, and oh my god. But yeah, oh, we overdid it with the blusher here. I probably should have put bronzer. This is like literally the most I could ever do for makeup. If I was like in a mirror with better lighting, I'd probably do better, but that's what it is. Thanks for that. I don't do makeup. I promise you I don't do makeup. That's why I wear glasses. It covers, like, it takes care of you having to wear makeup. But go ahead and give this a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment, subscribe. Don't leave me a comment if you didn't watch the full video. Though I guess this is a bad time to say that. Yeah, thanks for having a gab today with me. See y'all.